Good evening, Western Standard viewers. I'm Nigel Hannaford, and welcome to the Hannaford Show. It would be hard to exaggerate the impact that the late Ted Byfield had on the life and politics of Alberta for the last 30 years, I would say. The man was incredibly industrious, pushing out his point of view through the Report magazines and through various publications. I knew him a little in the last years of his life, and even at the age of 90, he was still publishing books. He thrust this into my hand just before I saw him for the last time. The time is now, and it was an examination of the culture wars that were raging in Alberta and continue to do so. We are very pleased to have with us tonight Vince Byfield. Welcome, Vince.
Hey, Nigel. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Gosh, you're so hard to get on the phone. This is what we do to have to get you, is it? Also, I'm glad to welcome Jonathon van Maren, who is a columnist who will be familiar to many of our readers through his own Bridgehead postings. You have just, I think, completed this little book here, The Prairie Lion,
yes.
A biography of Ted Byfield. It's a great read, and I'm going to come to you first. Actually, Jonathon, let me start with you. You've had a good look at the life of Ted Byfield. Stephen Harper said that Ted Byfield's magazines, the reports, Alberta, BC, Western, were key to nurturing the conservative movement in Western Canada. Would you agree with that?
Completely. I think it was probably best put by publisher Peter Stockland, who said, no Alberta Report, no Reform Party as it was, no Reform Party as it was, no PC collapse, no PC collapse, no Conservative majority in 2011. It's shorthand history, but fair shorthand history. Many people don't know that it was actually Ted who wrote the first column in 1986 proposing the idea for what a reform-type party would look like. He did the keynote speech in 1987 in Vancouver, announcing that the West wants in. That conference was an incredibly momentous conference for Canadian conservatism because it was hosted by Preston Manning. And at that conference, a young Stephen Harper handed Preston Manning a paper on taxes that landed him a job as chief policy analyst. Ted would never take credit for all of the things that followed, but Preston Manning insisted on giving it to him, and almost everybody I interviewed said that we simply would not have seen politics unfold the way they did without Alberta Report, without Ted Byfield.
Well, that's all the recommendation we need. And coming now to you, Vince, one of the very, very sad things that we all Western conservatives had to contend with was that when your father passed on, he did so in the middle of the COVID epidemic, and we were never really able to have that kind of a Viking funeral that he so richly deserved. I sort of remember that graveside ceremony at 30 below in Edmonton, and the interment that followed, and I've never heard the liturgy chanted so quickly and so compellingly. But that was the fact. The fact was that even though a former premier, Jason Kenney, did show up, there were an awful lot of people who would have wanted to say something as we said goodbye to your father.
Absolutely.
And I know you have got a project.
I do.
Tell us about it.
Do. Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned Preston, because I give credit for this project to Preston. So Preston, after recent events, we had a fellow up here from a gentleman from America by the name of Tucker Carlson. And Preston helped me a lot in trying to get people to that event. And we filled a stadium. And I was calling Preston afterwards to thank him for getting me in touch with key people to help to get that room full. And he then said, it's too bad that we never really had the opportunity to give your dad the kind of send-off that he deserved. And And I agreed. And he said, if you do decide, even at this stage of the game, to do something, some kind of occasion or event, I would be honored to speak at that. And I said, be careful, Preston. I may take you up on that. And I then brought it past Premier Smith's eyes, and she liked the idea very much. And from that, we now have an event which we have coined the Toasting Ted, an evening to remember and to honor Ted Byfield. It's going to be in Edmonton at the Edmonton Convention Center, Hall D, their biggest hall. And it's going to be on September the 25th, and it will be a night to remember. Very much styled in the kind of festive occasions and parties that Dad enjoyed to host. He was well known for his Boxing Day parties, which he would pack our home with upwards of 200 people. We do not have that large a home, so it was a crowded affair, but a lot of fun, a lot of singing, a lot of good times. He hosted it almost 40 times, right? So this will be in the style of that.
Be an echo of a well-tried routine for bringing people together. Yeah. But I think this one's going to be a lot bigger, and if you don't move quickly, you are probably going to miss out. So how do people get their hands on a ticket?
Well, the best way is to go to our website, which is Toasting Ted, all one word, toasting, like Toast, toastingted.ca. And the very first thing you see at the top is a big red button that says reserve your spot. And what that does is gives you a form. You're not actually buying a ticket just yet. What you are doing is filling out your interest, and you are then in the queue for a spot at the table for this event, which will be an amazing event. And so we're doing it in that fashion rather than giving out ticket prices, because we want very much you'll recall that I said it's an evening to remember Ted, but it's also an evening to honor Ted. And by honor, Dad gave the last 20 years of his life, at least, to the creation of what he believes is his most important work, which was the 12-volume history book series on that is entitled "The Christians: Their First 2,000 Years." And it's that series that we are trying to raise funds for with this event, to get them into as many high school as possible.
Well, I think that's a wonderful project, and I am somewhat familiar with it, having worked on it myself in the, or not on the preparation of the books, but in the use of them later as teaching aids. So I wish you very well with that. So it's a good cause, but I think tell us again, you have Premier Smith speaking. That's wonderful news. Who else? If this is going to be a truly conservative event, like, who else is going to be there?
Well, we have also Stephen Harper, who will be speaking. He is, unfortunately, he is not able to attend. We were hoping he could. He was trying to get his schedule readjusted, but he won't be able to attend. So he is trying to make a video for the evening. And we are working with Pierre Poilievre as well, and with Jason Kenney to have them provide speaking. There are other people. There are a lot of other people that are coming. Politicians from the Reform days, current politicians from the United Conservative Party days. We have alumni from all of the Report magazines. We have people coming from his days from St. John's School. We have students coming. We have subscribers of Alberta Report coming, many of them from all over the province. So there's also going to be a live auction at this event, and Stockwell Day has volunteered his services as an auctioneer for that event. I had no idea that before he was politician, Stock was an auctioneer. So I understand he's a very good one too. So
Yes, I have certainly seen him in action, and this is not an event at which you can afford to leave your, or maybe you should leave your wallet at home. I don't know, but at any rate, this is all for a good cause. So
yeah.
we hope people give generously. Okay, so this has all the merit, all the marks of being one of those hallmark signature attractions that people will talk about for months, years even. And I don't know, were you at the such and such? Well, you know, you're going to want to be able to say, yes, I was there and I heard these people, and it was a wonderful tribute to a great man who did enormous things for Alberta. And I picked up on what you said about alumni from the old Report magazines. There are so many of them. We won't get into who's who, but some of the most prominent names in Canadian journalism started off in your father's office and there with your mother, proofreading, and have stories to tell, and it made them what they were. Look, there's one other thing that I want to bring forward here, Vince. This is a very significant moment for us at the Western Standard, because having acquired the rights to the Alberta Report name, we are very proud to be carrying this name forward within the context of the Western Standard. And so what readers have already discovered is that to pick up the latest Alberta news, they go to that section of our website called Alberta Report. Everything that is tagged Alberta goes into there. And Vince, our goal is to continue the promotion of conservatism in the way that your father did for so many years and so effectively. And I like what Jonathon had said just now about how your father had actually laid out the blueprint that happened. Get a regional party going, morph onto the national scene, you know, bring the old parties together and take over the government. So, I mean, that was incredibly ambitious for 1986. Here at the Western Standard, we have our own ambitions, and we're very pleased to think that name, the Alberta Report, to which we're sentimentally attached, as well as in a business way, is going to be part of it. So it's a new era for both of us, Vince.
Yes, yeah, and I would say that Western Standard is doing an admirable job in maintaining that independent voice that Alberta Report became so famous for. There are many people through the years who've come to Dad and expressed their appreciation for that time during the NEP years, the National Energy Program years, when virtually the entire established media was not saying anything at all, in contradiction to this huge power grab that was taking place. But Dad spoke up, and by doing so, earned the appreciation and loyalty of Albertans everywhere, especially in the oil industry. And I believe that the Western Standard is absolutely continuing in that fashion. So it is exceptionally appropriate that you take on and become, as we say, that this event will signal a changing of the guard from Alberta Report to the Western Standard, and I see it in good hands. So,
well, they're in the yes. You know, our publisher, Derek Fildebrandt, will be speaking at your event, and I'm sure he'll have more to say on this subject, but that's very much the way that he sees it, as a continuation of a mission, a continuation of a very well-beloved and well-respected name in Alberta journalism. So the project that you are engaged upon, Vince, is distributing these books. I get the impression that your father never lost his interest in politics, but became increasingly towards the end of his life very conscious of wanting to take on a project that would honor God. Is that where that series of books came from?
Yeah, Dad. One of the things that Dad recognized with Alberta Report, and I think it kind of depressed him a little bit, is that when he would put a lot of work into making every issue, and it would have currency. It actually had tremendous currency. The readership reached at one point in the neighborhood of 500,000 Albertans, and this was at a time when Alberta was 2 to 2.5 million people. So that would be 1 in 5 Albertans were reading the magazine on a regular basis. And people like Ted Morton, who will also be at this event and speaking, he said that at one point this is pre-internet days, Nigel, and in rural Alberta, when the next issue of Alberta Report came out, people were talking about it. But nonetheless, after a few weeks and months, all that work would wind up in a bin, and Dad wanted to have a more lasting impact, so he started a series of books called Alberta in the 20th Century. And I believe that Alberta, he completed that 12 hardcover, beautifully illustrated volumes of the history of our province, Alberta. And I don't know of any other province or state in North America, or the world for that matter, that has 12 full volumes dedicated to their history for 1 century.
It's an incredible piece of work, and some very well-known writers contributed to that. I do recall. I know that you had Paul Bunner there editing it at one time. Paul Bunner went on to become a speechwriter for Prime Minister Harper. So the connections there are very close and very intense.
Both
then morph into the Christian history.
Well, so after those books were completed, Dad also, I'll just say it, he was concerned about the rise of a resurgence of Islam, and so he had started to write copious notes on the influence of Islam in the Western civilization in the modern world, but he wanted people to know the history, the background, and why it was a very serious threat. And so he began initially with that. But then as he started to do it more and more, he realized that this was only one segment of our history that most young people do not know. And it's not really, and so Dad realized that there was actually a very pressing need for a complete history of everything that has transpired in Christendom or the Western. When you and I went to school in university, there was a course called Western Civilization, and it's now very rarely available now in universities. But these books essentially comprise that. It's the history of Christianity, and they have done. Dad did an exceptional job with this set of books because he went out of his way to recruit writers from all the main denominations of Christianity. So he had Catholic writers, various Protestant denominations involved, and also Orthodox Christian writers, and also he brought on academics, so that the contents of these books are agreed upon by all the major academics from all the major denominations, and that has now taken on a life of its own. I can tell you stories. We have 200,000 of the books printed so far. They have reached all the, I won't say corners, but all the world. And they've had quite an incredible impact. I can tell. But anyway, that's what Dad was driven to do those books next, and that was an enormous task involving hundreds of people contributing and millions of dollars to make.
But it is indeed an incredible project. I have my own set there, and it's remarkable. Look, we're almost out of time. Jonathon, I think it would be remiss of me if I did not point out that through your own bridgehead publication, you are very much on the same mission as Ted Byfield was, fighting the culture war, maybe not the political war, but the culture war. And I have read a lot of your work and admire it. I wish you'd give it away for free to the Western Standard sometimes, but darn it, you're a businessman as well. So look, thank you for joining us. For the Western Standard, I'm Nigel Hannaford.